Looking at NVDA on that date, and we'll be focusing on both the short-term daily movements and the longer-term weekly trends.
Right. It's like looking through two different lenses. One gives us a close-up view, the other a wider perspective. And sometimes they tell different stories. But when they align, well, that's when things get really interesting.
I like that. Two different lenses. So let's switch to that close-up view first. Slide 2. NVIDIA daily chart. The analysis calls it an overall bearish bias. Bearish, huh? So what are the signs, the signals that point in that direction?
Well, the daily chart has a few things to say. First, look at the closing price on March 24th, $117.07. What's interesting is that it's below the daily middle Bollinger Band, sitting at $118.06. You can think of Bollinger Bands like guide rails for the stock price. They kind of show us the normal range of volatility. When the price dips below that middle line, it can mean that the upward momentum, the bullish energy, might be fading.
So the price itself is giving us a hint, a little warning sign maybe. But what else is backing this up? What other indicators are pointing to this bearish trend on the daily chart?
Momentum is always a key factor. That's where the MACD comes in, the moving average convergence divergence indicator. And it's definitely showing bearish momentum here. The MACD line has crossed below the signal line, and the histogram is negative. What does that mean? It means the short-term trend is falling faster than the long-term trend, and that usually means we're gaining downward momentum.
Right, so the price is dipping below its normal range, and a key momentum indicator is flashing red, or should I say bearish. Anything else on this daily chart that supports this view?
Yeah, let's look at the RSI, the Relative Strength Index. It's at 46.42. Not quite in oversold territory, but definitely below that neutral 50 level. Basically, the RSI is like a gauge for buying and selling pressure. A reading below 50 suggests that sellers might be in control for now. So you put it all together, the price, the MACD, the RSI, and yeah, they're all leaning towards bearish on the daily chart.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture, but we've only looked at the daily view. Let's zoom out a bit and check out slide 3, NVIDIA weekly chart. It also mentions an overall bearish bias, but it says potential continuation of bearish momentum. That sounds a bit more serious, right? What's going on in the longer term?
It's like those echoes you were talking about. We see similar signals on the weekly chart, which definitely strengthens the bearish argument. For example, that closing price of $117.70, well, it's also below the weekly middle Bollinger Band, which is at $122.23. So even when we look at the entire week, the price is still suggesting weakness.
Interesting how that same price level is significant on both charts. It's below the Bollinger Band on both the daily and the weekly. Okay, let's move on to momentum again. What are the weekly indicators saying?
We've got a couple more bearish signals here. The stochastic oscillator is definitely pointing down. It basically looks at where the recent closing price sits within its high-low range over the past few weeks. And right now, it's telling us that the price is closer to the bottom of that range. That usually means there's downward pressure. And guess what? The MACD is also bearish on the weekly chart. The MACD line is below the signal line, negative histogram. Same story as the daily chart. Having that MACD signal be consistent across both timeframes is, well, it's a pretty strong indication that we might be in a real downtrend.
Wow, the MACD really is speaking loud and clear, isn't it? Bearish on both the daily and the weekly. And what about the RSI on this weekly chart? Is it telling us the same thing?
Yep. The weekly RSI is at 44.93, again below that crucial 50 level. Like the daily RSI, it's suggesting that sellers have been more active over the past week.
So if I'm following you correctly, both the daily and weekly charts are telling a similar story. A bearish story, driven by the stock price and those key momentum indicators. And now it's time for the big reveal. So what have we learned today? Based on the technical analysis, as of March 24th, 2025, it looks like NVDA stock is facing some strong bearish headwinds. Both the daily and weekly charts are pointing down. The price is below key volatility indicators, and those momentum indicators, well, they're all singing the same bearish tune. We've identified some potential support levels around $115, $105.42, and $114.96. Those are the levels to watch in the coming days and weeks. They might provide temporary support, but if they break, well, things could get a lot worse. And while there's a chance of a small bounce, the overall bearish picture suggests it might not last very long.
That's a great summary. It really does seem like the technicals are painting a pretty clear picture here. Bearish signals across multiple indicators and time frames, that's not something to ignore.
This has been a fascinating deep dive, and I hope it's given you some valuable insights into the technical side of NVDA stock. But remember, this is just one piece of the puzzle. So here's a question for you to consider. What other information would you want to look at to make a more informed decision about NVDA? And how would you use these technical signals, these bearish warnings, to inform your investment strategy? Think about it. There's always more to learn, more to explore, and that's what makes the market so exciting, so unpredictable.
And that's why we keep coming back for more.
Absolutely. Until next time.
See you then.